Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
All right, welcome back to the Gentle Art of Crushing It podcast. My name's Randy Smith, and I'll be your host today. Really excited to have Darren Christensen with us. Darren is the founder of My Shea Space, and they focus primarily on affordable housing projects, and excited to have him here. So Darren, welcome to the show.
Hey, Randy, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump right in. Can you tell the audience kind of your perspective on where we're at in the market and how that might be affecting the passive investors?
It might be infecting.
It might be infecting. That's right.
It's wild out there right now. I think there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of things that are going to be correcting as we had some good times, and there's a lot of things that are just slowly dying off right now. So it's a scary time to engage those things. But on the bright side, I think with the new administration coming in, I've got a lot of hope for it. The markets are already turning around. You can use the crypto markets, the stock market to gauge the motion behind the country, if you will. And that's when those things are doing well, then things are looking up in some capacity, at least the feeling behind things. And if people are feeling better with their holdings, then money will free up and projects continue and money flows and good times.
Very good. Yeah, so you're cautiously optimistic as we move into the new administration, and you think the crypto hit 100,000 yesterday. So, that kind of puts a date on us here. This will be coming out in early January. We're recording this in early December. Who knows where that will be in January? But yeah, so you're generally excited about where things are going, it sounds like.
Exactly.
Fantastic. I would agree. I think we're about to enter potentially some of the strongest years that we've seen, certainly in recent past, in the next 5 to 7 years, which creates great passive investing opportunities for everybody listening and beyond. So, well, let's back up a little bit. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, other than the fact that you're the founder of My Shea and what you're doing today and how you got there?
Sure. Like a lot of people, I started out with fix and flips, rehabs, and moved up to ground up construction, got to about my bandwidth there. And I love efficiency. I love constantly pivoting and making the business more efficient, making processes more efficient, and started developing. And I love ground up development. You can make the most profit there because you're cutting out a lot of the middlemen or the middle stages that cut a lot of, they all take a piece of it, right? So if we can do something from ground up, that's a lot better. Started working with that, and then how do we make this better? Because now we're just doing ground up construction, but we're just starting from an earlier point. And I stumbled upon prefab housing or modular housing. And modular is key because it appraises, it's legally indistinguishable from a site-built structure. So they appraise the same, which is ideal, especially if you're going to trade these things and not hold them or whatever the case is. We got into that and had a project that just anything that could go wrong went wrong.
Okay.
And it should have just been really, it should have been a short timeline, should have knocked it out of the park. But we found all of the inefficiencies in the systems, and I'm glad it happened. I'm glad we went through that struggle because it pushed me to do this when we're like, okay, we can do it better ourselves. And we spent probably a year and a half looking at factories, just looking for sources of the homes themselves, and didn't really get a whole lot of traction there. And that was the final push. Okay, we'll open up our own factory. We'll do this. We just build smaller footprints. We can get around a ton of the logistics issues. We can do this for an order of magnitude less upfront capital than building the full-size homes. And yeah, we spent the last 18 months really refining that. We've done all the prototyping, all of the floor plans, all of the sourcing for the materials, the material choices, and then going through the actual production process in the factory of how these things are going to get assembled and how that can scale to do 200 of these homes a year. So yeah, we've done the hard part. Now we're We've got one final stage of getting our certifications, and then we're launching with massive scalable product that can go all over the country.
And so where's the factory located?
In Central Texas, just outside of Austin.
And then target markets of where will you start kind of locally and then build out kind of a spider web or?
Yeah, so the most efficient thing when you're building off-site, you have to take into account your delivery radius. And you want your delivery radius to be within 4 hours of the factory. That way your trucks can go out and come back in the same day. So we're perfectly situated to take advantage of the entire Texas triangle. So Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, that's where almost 80% of the population and GDP of the state is, and there's hugely growing. So anywhere, most of our developments that we'll be doing are going to be on the outskirts of those big cities.
Are you interested in real estate investing but don't know where to get started or think you don't have the time or money? Are you stuck in your W-2 because the golden handcuffs make it hard to walk away? If this sounds like you, check out impactequity.net and schedule some time to talk with the founder, Randy Smith. Randy went from massive income to leaving his W-2 through passive income, and he can help you do the same. www.impactequity.net.
Love it. And so are these like kind of smaller master plan communities, or are these, are there 201 location? Are there 20 unit sites? What are the sites going to look like?
So we can do anything. Our premise is to scale. There is not a good solution for truly affordable housing. We have solved not only being able to bring a product to market that's truly affordable for the tenant, the end user, but it's also hugely profitable for the investor, the developer. And to really take advantages of economies of scale, production capacities, that sort of thing, we need to do this at a high volume. And we need to do it as conforming as possible so that we can get in all the jurisdictions. So we've done the case studies. We've worked with the cities to see exactly what they want to see. Yeah, high density multifamily is the target, but we can also do things more like boutique hotels, that sort of thing. Just any range in the spectrum, but primarily business to business.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think didn't we see just a very, very large investment by one of the big, New York houses in this modular multifamily home space just in the last 30 days or so?
I'm not sure exactly what the one you're talking about, but there's a lot of movement in this space. Boxable is a big one, and they're going to be like your IKEA or your Walmart. They're going to be huge, but there's no way to completely fill this dearth in the market. There's just this huge void in affordable housing, and especially when it's paired with any of the government programs that actually stifle the progress. They add a ton of runway to your timeline. They add a ton of overhead to the project. And the way that they're set up, they aren't actually set up for the tenant, the end user. It doesn't actually make anything cheaper. It's just a way to get around and get a bigger tax write-off for the developer, which is, I think we can win on both sides. I think we can win on the investor side and where it's really needed. I love the idea, the what if. Like, what if we could get somebody in a housing situation where they weren't just in struggle every day? They weren't just trying to survive. What does that free them up to do? What is like the 1 in 1,000 person that could create the next big thing because they just were able to have a little bit more breathing room in their life? I love that what if scenario, and we're really playing towards being the most affordable option, but not taking away any of the amenity or the living situation. Like, we based this initially off of the room share, like pad split sort of model. And what we got from all the data was really let me turn that off. Sorry about that.
Okay.
What the tenant really wants is that the lowest price point possible and the most autonomy possible. So if they can have their own access to the unit, they can have their own bathroom, their own kitchenette, right? Those are all the things they need. It can still be an efficiency unit, right? So we're building these smaller footprints, but we don't need to build out any of the common areas. That's not the main driver. It just happens to be that there's a lot of single family homes that can be converted. That was the model. That was the previous thing. But to build something new, we kind of take exactly what the tenant wants and merge that with how can we most efficiently manufacture that.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is It's a space I've been watching pretty closely. I know that like Denver metro area, they were able to convert, it was some crazy number, like 10,000 people off the streets into small units like these. I'm not sure what that manufacturing looked like, if that was comparable or similar, but they were literally taking people off the streets and giving them homes through some type of subsidized something, which I thought was really interesting. And then I know in Texas, there is a lot of opportunity with like tax abatement as well. So I'm curious, is tax abatement something that you guys can leverage in this space, or does that have to be in the value add space as well?
It can be. It's not something we're going after. We're not going after any government subsidies whatsoever. Again, the overhead that those add, it can come into play in a bigger development where there's some more tax advantages, but then you also lock up the property. There's 30-year deed restrictions that come with that. There's a lot more overhead that all transfers back to costing the tenant more. We had talks with the state and with the grantors and everything that control these programs. We were looking at rates, just outside of Austin for $200 a week, all bills paid, right? And so we're looking at $800 a month, right? All bills paid, which is phenomenal. The cheapest thing out there, unless you're in an absolute slumlord situation. Their low income rates, what are allowed, the floor for those rates is like $1,600 a month, literally double, and I don't think that that's affordable in any capacity. So there's this huge market that's unserved, and we can still be hugely profitable doing that in this capacity. But if we have to go to these other government subsidy routes, it's not helping the people who need the help.
Yeah, let's dig in. Can we talk about the specifics of the units? Like, how big are they? Like, you already mentioned you could build a couple hundred, but talk about the unit itself. Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, so we can build from roughly 200 square feet, 600 square foot modules. We'll be expanding soon, and then we can do more like a 1,300 square foot. That will consist of 2 modules put together. So that could be like a single family house. The ones that we're looking at for developments are what we call studio duplex. So it's one module with 2 units in it. And they're roughly 220 square feet each. So it's like a hotel room essentially. So you have a full bath, you have a kitchenette in there, you've got your living area that's all in one open space. And we can make 4plexes, 8plexes out of those. Those can all be conforming to high density multifamily. And on the other end of that, we can use those to double the occupancy of an RV park. They fit in an RV space being 12 feet wide, 36 feet long, and each unit has the equivalent square footage of a 30-foot RV. It's just in a more efficient layout.
Yeah, that is amazing. So there's all kinds of options. Are you looking at ADU as an option, or is that an option in Texas like it is in some other states? Or
so there's some movements going towards ADUs. And I'd say Austin is a lot like California in the sense that a one-off floor plan doesn't really work. You really need to maximize the amount of units you can put on the lot that you've got. And we would absolutely white label our product for a developer that wants something that could put something that's standardized. Like I said, we could put these things anywhere in the country. We just get a stamp for whatever that state is, the engineering stamp. There are places that it absolutely makes sense, but in your really densely populated areas or your high ticket areas, I'm seeing it less so that we could just drop something and maximize your returns.
What do the individual units cost off the factory line?
So as low as about $38,000.
No kidding.
And these are extremely durable units. We build them for tenant turnover. We build them to be very easily maintained. They all have standing seam metal roofs, and most of the siding is also standing seam metal. We thought about this very thoroughly because we plan on self-managing hundreds, if not thousands, of these things. And how do we make maintenance as low as possible? And even the AC systems what are some maintenance systems that we could put in there just live, right? So like little things, having a humidity sensing bath fan. It's hardwired, right? There's no switch. It turns on when it senses the humidity. So there's never that mildew smell. There's never anything like growing behind the walls just because somebody didn't turn it or leave it on long enough, whatever the case is. There's just hundreds of those little details that we've seen over the years correcting damaged homes that
Sure.
that have just
Yeah. And so what is repair and maintenance look like on these? Is there, does it need like a refresh every, 24 months? Or I guess you probably don't know what that's going to look like on the back end, or do you have estimates at least?
we're using lifetime products a lot of the cases, like the standing seam metal. There's no roof penetration, so there's no possibilities of leaks. All of the venting comes out of the gable end walls. That's covered by a roof overhang. Lifetime flooring. We're using 50-year siding where there is siding. We're using top of the line paints that should last 20 years. So there shouldn't be, this thing will not turn off.
It's okay.
There shouldn't be anything that needs to be done for a generation off.
Good. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like the goal is then to kick 200 of these off in year one, ideally. You're going to be selling to developers that are doing kind of the land development piece, I'm guessing. So they'll go direct to them. Like when should you see units coming off the factory line?
So we're already producing.
Okay.
And we're just limited to rural placement right now until we get our certifications. And we're looking at doing that Q1 of next year. And at which point they can get placed anywhere. You can get a mortgage on them. The banks will finance them. We're in a beautiful place.
Interesting.
That's our last little hurdle that we're going.
Yeah, so I know like in the mobile home community world, like those are not financed like a traditional single family home.
Right.
So these will be financeable like a traditional 30-year.
Yeah. With the modular certification, like I said, they're legally indistinguishable from a site-built structure.
Unbelievable. Well, so fast forward next year, where do you guys expect to be? Are you hoping to, you mentioned owning, managing a large number of these yourself. Is the goal to take a portion of that 200 that you guys would actually own and manage yourselves and then sell the rest? Or what's the next year look like?
So we want to be our own customer, our own biggest customer, and then sell any of the surplus line time to other developers. We have lots of ideas for expansion. So when we're doing a bigger development, if we're doing at least 100 units, it would make sense for us to do a pop-up factory. And then we could produce all the units there on site, and then we have additional capacity to produce. And then beyond that, we can franchise this model where someone could come in and for about $2 million, they could produce $15 million worth of units every year. So we really set this up in all capacities to be profitable on all ends. And then we can just set up territories that are roughly 4-hour windows from one another.
Sure. Perfect. And so tell me about the team, if you can. Like, obviously, this is not a one-man shop. So what does the team look like?
It's pretty close. We're very much startup phase, and my wife and I run most of the, set up the business, most of the marketing, all of those things, customer acquisitions. I've got a foreman that's been with me for years, so he's double checking everything that I'm doing, and then we have a light force of workers. So we essentially have all the trades in-house. So we need people that are good at all of those things. But it's very light shop right now until we scale. And once we scale, then we bring on more guys. But we're projecting we could do full capacity of about 200 units a year with less than 16 employees. Yeah.
Includes the manufacturing, installation, drivers, the whole. Unbelievable. That's amazing. Well, so how exciting. I think you and I met probably about a year and a half ago. And at the time, I believe you presented as a developer at the time. So it's amazing to see in 18 months how far you have brought this from concept to implementation and actual units rolling off the factory line. How exciting. That is unbelievable what you have done in the last 18 months. Yeah. So there's probably not been a lot of sleep and vacations and a lot of free time, I can't imagine.
No, not at all.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'm curious, obviously there's a humongous need for affordable housing, not only in the Triangle, but all over the whole country. I'm curious your thoughts about, the current kind of economic trends and what type of benefit that's going to bring to this space in the coming, 4 to 6 years? Curious your thoughts on where we're going there.
So like I said, this is the biggest and least tapped area in real estate. There's not a whole lot of real solutions for it right now. So I think it's very early days in this market, but I think there's going to be a whole lot of companies going after it. And I also predict that there's companies like Boxable that are going to get a huge foot in the door. And then there's other companies that are going to see that and want to make up ground. So I fully see our company being able to be rolled up in that capacity. But once we're at full capacity, it's a $125 million company, not including any of the additional services or any of the franchising or any of those things that we can tack on there. So it's massive. And I think we're going to see a lot of money roll into these things in the next 5 years to really take advantage of that. Like anything, like you've seen any of the hot investment takes, you've seen RV parks, you've seen storage units, you've seen these things like really get hot, and we're at the beginning stages of this market. There's a big wide open void. It's the Wild West right now. People are still trying to figure it out. But once you get a foothold in there, once it's been proven that you can do it, then there's just going to be a ton of money that's being thrown at this.
So we're a podcast focused on passive investing. So what type of opportunities might be available for passive investors, whether they are today or in the future? If you can talk about them, I know in some situations you can't. So is there anything you can share about opportunities where there could be for folks to partner with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. With us or other companies, there's always developments that need to happen, and those need to get funded up front. But we'll also be looking at capital raise and investing in the company itself. There isn't anything much more passive than that.
Sure.
We need to scale and ramp up. So that's where we're at. We'll be doing selling off a share of the company for that and anticipate a 10x in the company within 2 years. Just because how quickly this thing can escalate.
Sure.
Exponential.
Yeah.
There's those two aspects, and investing in projects, which is very mainstream, and then investing in the company itself.
Unbelievable. And so you in your organization will start doing development projects as well. Do you have any of those in the works within the Triangle at this point?
We've done design studies on those. We've worked with cities. We've picked out cities that we want to be in, and we've had meetings with them and probed them just on the outskirts of Austin. And then we've actually done a whole study where we've gotten properties under contract and run through the whole permitting process with them, and then backed out at the last minute because it's going to be a $12 million raise to do a couple hundred units, right? But yeah, so we've learned an incredible amount from that and how to work with the city, and we'll be going after that immediately following our certification process.
Okay. Very good. And the cities and the municipality appetite is strong for this type of development?
And it's funny, a lot of people have different definition of what affordable is in their head. And I've come into the meetings and say, hey, we really want to do something that's truly affordable. And you get the pushback immediate, like, oh, okay, well, everybody says affordable. Like, how affordable is it really? And you tell them, and they're like,
really affordable.
And then they're like, okay, but we're not interested in an RV park or a mobile home park. It's like, none of that. This is absolutely conforming to all the zoning, all the stipulations that they're going to have. And I think the biggest thing we ran into was parking, where even if it's a tiny studio, the parking they still want 2 spaces per unit, which we fit it in there. We figured it out. But that was the biggest hiccup we ran into.
Interesting. Yeah. And so how does this compare to like the build to rent phase? Obviously, these are smaller units. Mm-hmm. But are you seeing the developments, or is the vision to have developments similar to the build to rent space, just with smaller units?
Yeah. The numbers are kind of tricky when you're looking at a smaller unit, because we're building for maybe $200 a square foot, but the tenant's also paying $4 a square foot, which seems crazy, right? Until you take into account that the bottom line is the only number they care about. They only care about it's costing them $800 a month, all bills paid. They don't look at it. Nobody that's in that situation looks at a metric of I'm paying $4 a square foot for this. But on the investment side, that's amazing. So we can build for 50% of appraised value, which means we can also do the entire development and take our profit on the back end with the permanent lending. Like we can have really good financing up front. We can have really good returns, and then we can make sure that we cash out of these things in a very good place.
So the big end game is a build to rent,
Right. Just
be able to sell.
And then we'll do like single family neighborhoods as well. But that's going to take some more infrastructure on our end to do.
Okay. So selling direct to consumer single family homes, just smaller footprint. Interesting. God, it seems like the opportunity and the possibilities are just almost endless in this space. Yeah. And so a single family home, and I'm just trying to do like quick math. Like, have you done any of the analysis to see like what would a single family home of this size cost as like if you were to sell it retail?
So we're shooting for 150 to 175,000 for 1,400 square foot home. That would be 2 modules that include the land and everything. So something that's in an established neighborhood on the outskirts of a major metropolitan area.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And that is truly affordable housing that folks with average median income of most zip codes are going to be able to, especially in those areas, are going to be able to afford. That's amazing. Well, very exciting.
At that point, we also bring in other streams of revenue. So we could raise funds to do financing, in-house financing for these homes as well. So there's just stacks on stacks of revenue streams that we can put on this.
Amazing. Well, what have I not asked that I should be asking, or what have we left out?
And I think that's pretty well covers the basis of what we're doing, okay, where the market's at.
Okay. So if potential investors want to reach out and learn more about what you guys are doing, or just people that are interested in development or just connecting with you to hear more about this, how can they find you?
Our website, myshespace.com. We've got a contact us tab on there, and anything from interested in product to interested in investing is on there. And we reach out as soon as we get those coming in.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, Darren, this has been educational. It's actually, I'm excited to see that a solution like this is going to be available soon. It's something that's so needed in the marketplace, and there's such a need for affordable housing. And to your point, like I hear affordable housing all the time, and then I see what that actually means. And a lot of these projects, like even the tax abatement products, like they're offering tax abatement, but they don't end up actually offering cheaper rents. So it's crazy to me that those types of programs exist. And I suspect that they'll have challenges in the future keeping those in place. So this seems like a sustainable solution that's got just a tremendous runway. So congratulations. This is super exciting. So, well, let's, if we can, I do have a handful of questions I like to ask everybody before we wrap up the show. For the newer passive investor, do you have any educational resource ideas or suggestions for folks to look into to learn more and continue their education process with passive investing?
I can do one in general in life, right? We're only learning if we're out of our depth. So be okay with being out of your depth and just jump in there. You're going to learn orders of magnitude more by taking some sort of action than you will ever by just passively absorbing information. That is a huge thing. It's okay to be the dumbest one in the room, and that's actually a good place to be. If you're the dumbest one in the room, then you've got the most to gain, right? Those are good things to be. And yeah, like I said, just going after it, getting out of your head, and then you figure your way out. And whether or not it was good, whether or not it was correct, you're going to learn so much more.
I'm a ready, fire, aim guy myself. And yeah, I would agree. Like you can sit on the sidelines learning, reading books, listening to podcasts, going to meetups, all of these things. But when you make that, and this is how we finish every single show, like make the decision to jump in and do something. So really, really great advice. Do you have a favorite book or any podcast that you're listening to lately that gets you really excited or you're learning a ton from?
I've recently made a change in how I'm taking in media and content now. I used to only do nonfiction, just self-help books, just business books, just regimented. How can I learn as much as I can? And what I realized was I wasn't really driven at a point. I was just doing it for the sake of doing it. If there's a story behind it, I find that I can retain a lot more. I'm motivated to continue, whether it's fiction. I mean, fiction is great too. A real person had to write it. I mean, AI is writing books now too, but you can still tell, right? But like, there's real stories, there's real people, there's real lessons to be learned in fiction, and it is okay to deviate from that. I do have a book that I am preferential to. My wife wrote it.
Okay.
I call bullshit. It's a
Love
memoir.
it. Okay.
Will make you feel all the feels, from laughing to crying to just. It's a really well written book, and I would encourage people to do something that makes them feel something more as often.
Love it. Yeah, great advice. Yeah, we get so stuck in listening to how-to and instructional. And what I've been finding recently, well, one, I love parables because I learn better through the stories, just like yourself. But I'm also finding when I am getting exposure to things outside of the arena where I am, that actually spurs more creative kind of juices in me to think outside of this small world that we live in. So that's been really helpful too. And so, yeah, another really great advice and different type of answer than I normally get from folks. So thank you. That's refreshing. When we spend a lot of time talking about due diligence on this podcast, so I'm curious, for the passive investor, are there due diligence questions that you think they should be asking that maybe they're not? Maybe not, the non-obvious questions that could be out there?
Yeah. And I haven't done a whole lot of passive investing, but I do have people coming to my company, and the biggest question I get is, are you real? And it's a valid question. I would encourage anybody that's looking to invest any sum of money to show up in person, meet who you're investing with, see the site, see what the project is, and get a feel for if they're real, if they're passionate about what they're doing, if there's any red flags. I run my life on a series of red flags. If somebody has 3 red flags, I cut all ties. Like, we're not doing business. There's no way. Because if in the warming up stages you've thrown red flags, no, it's not worth it.
Right.
And then in my particular industry, anything that's prefab or offsite, there's a lot of fake out there. It doesn't take a whole lot to get a pretty rendering, and renderings are getting pretty good these days. Most people don't even realize that they're looking at a rendering. So they just think it's real. And in a lot of cases, companies will raise a bunch of money not having actually produced anything. So I encourage people, hey, come see us, come meet us, come walk the factory line, see that we're doing real things. But that can work in any case. Get to know who you're investing with and make sure that they're passionate about what they're going to be doing, and we'll see the project.
Definitely go steps further than attending a webinar and hopping on a Zoom call with somebody.
Yeah. And if they're taking your money, they're more than happy to give you the time to meet with you. If you're flying out or whatever the case is, they're going to meet with you. Like, it's worth their time to meet with you. And then you can learn more that way too. Learn more about the space.
And if it's, I mean, if you're investing, $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in something, $500 flight and a couple of Ubers are well worth the dollar spent, no doubt.
Absolutely.
So yeah, really great advice. And oddly enough, I've not heard that before either. So
I do think some unique
perspective. Yeah. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, let's wrap it up with a couple of fun ones here. You and I are both a part of a group called GoBundance, and we talk about bucket list items. So are there any bucket list items that you've recently checked off your list, or one that you hope to in the near future?
So recent was a couple of years ago now, since I've been building.
You've been busy?
Entire building. I went with a bunch of guys to Croatia, rented a 170-foot yacht, spent 2 weeks going down the coast of Croatia, and that was incredible. Just the experience, you're there long enough to experience the culture. You're doing something that's at a much higher stakes than I would ever do by myself. So that was pretty incredible.
Yeah. Any future ones other than building affordable housing for everybody that needs it within the triangle? Is there anything in the near future coming?
I think that's important to keep your eye on a prize, to keep you motivated, because we're going through just every iteration. So I'm having to reinvent myself every week or every other week.
Sure.
So I do like to have my eye on the prize. And my next one I'm looking at is I'm going to build a 1965 Shelby Cobra replica, 600 horsepower, just an incredible beast.
Okay.
And I've got everything picked out. And that was my thing. Growing up, when I had that car, I'd made it. And that was what I had in my head. So I've got my sights set on doing that now.
Fantastic. We'll have to check in to see photos or a video of that once, or see it in person someday. Awesome. Well, let's see here. Our final question we ask everybody is, if you had $100,000 to invest in a project today, but you couldn't put it in your own project, where would you place that?
Well, this one's easy for me. And invest in the most valuable project you have. That's yourself. When you invest in yourself, that is going to compound and pay off dividends for your entire life, right? Whether it's a business coach, a life coach, I've got a rule where the barrier to entry is pretty low. Like if it's 10 grand, I'll throw money at it because I'm always going to learn so much. Even if I lose the 10 grand, right? I've opened up a whole other realm of possibility that I wouldn't have been exposed to before.
I spent far too many years not doing anything in addition to what corporate America invested into me. And when I did start investing in those types of programs, fortunately, I got laid off, and it has paid off very, very well, because without that investment in myself, I don't know what I would have done during that point. So yeah, great advice, Darren. Well, very good. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. This is refreshing. And it's exciting to hear what you're doing. Really excited to see what the next year brings for you and for everybody involved in this space. And gosh, I'm rooting for you, and I hope this goes as planned, because you're bringing such an amazing solution to the market that's needed so bad. So yeah, Darren, thank you so much for your time today. And thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the conversation.
Awesome. All right. To our listeners, as always, we urge you to continue that education journey on the passive investing space. But more importantly than that, like I said earlier, make the decision to invest in your first passive investment deal. I'm convinced that once you do, you will just wish that you had started that much sooner. So thank you again for joining us again today. Be sure to join us again next Thursday for another great episode. And don't forget to like and subscribe on whatever channel you're listening. Thanks again.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.